questions.
Thank you, Lorraine and Upu. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I briefly want to introduce myself. My name is Peter Alfamata. Born and raised in Paramount, but grew up in the city of Long Beach. And got a wife and 6 kids. Proud member of the folk movement. But I am here wearing my SoCal Picker hat. Upu and I are community navigators for Pacific Pathway Program. And in 2020, SoCal Pickers started a coalition of over 20 Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander organizations throughout Southern California and continues to carry a responsibility of supporting and uplifting our NHPI communities. In addition to caring for our coalition, we also provide direct service for our LA County NHPI families. In addition to caring for our coalition, we also provide direct service to our LA County NHPI families. Pacific Pathway is one of the SoCal Pitchers program and is currently focused on connecting our communities to resources including, not limited to, small business owners, entrepreneurs, and families with housing needs in LA County. The program is funded by LA County American Rescue Plan Fund. Roots of Resilience is an offering through the program that we hope will bring you useful information to help strengthen and empower the dreams of our families. We hope that you will stay on for the whole program today we'll run as follow. One, we will be spending time with our special guest, Tadao Salima. The audience, number two, the audience will have a chance to ask questions during the Q&A portion of our program. And three, then we will share our resources and grant opportunities that could be useful for some of you. Feel free to type in the questions in the chat box, and our team will be monitoring in the chat and on Zoom and YouTube and ensure answers as many questions as we possibly can. That being said, I want to ask you for your utmost respect and gracious space that we are sharing together this evening. Back to my brother Big U.
I appreciate you, St. Peter's. Yeah, so a little bit about myself. My name is Upumoni Siwama. I go by Upu. I was born in American Samoa and raised in the city of Compton, California. Today, I'm also a proud member of the folk movement. I'm also a sinner saved by the grace of God, and I'm an ex-gang member and formerly incarcerated. Before we go ahead, and I want to turn it back over to Lorraine so she can just give a little bio, a snippet of our guest speaker, and we can give him his virtual lays and his flowers.
Thanks, Supu. It took a little digging as he's a very humble individual, but we were able to gather some information on him. Tadao oversees all aspects of Almanga's business growth, development, and is constantly on the road, promoting, recruiting, and creating opportunities for Almanga Inc. and the team. As one of the founding members of Almanga Inc., Tadao brings over 20 years of experience in the executive and bodyguard industry. He has worked with many A-list celebrities, executives within the US and overseas. In addition to his extensive background in the private security industry, Tadao is a longtime contributor and volunteer for many outreach programs within the Pacific Islander communities. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Upu to get us going.
Yes, well, thank you guys for bearing with us and being patient for that introduction. And like what I mentioned, just give our guest his proper flowers and his lace. So, Tadao, Mr. Tadao Salima, man, finally here on our podcast. Such an honor to have you, Big O's. And always, we like to start off our first question, pretty much with what Pacific Island your family come from. That way, our community can, normally we tend to learn that we're related through that form of introduction. So we'll start off with that question right there. What village or Pacific Island your family is from? And can you share a little bit about your background?
Well, first and foremost, you see, I've started the tour Monea Vanoa to my Sinei to my titi, my Carson, California. First and foremost, I'd like to give all the honor and glory to our Father in heaven for this opportunity. Like I was telling you guys earlier, I'm not one to talk about all the the accolades that I have. I'd rather just lead by example. But thank you guys, SoCal Pick, for this opportunity. I had a conversation with my wife about this. If I don't tell my story on our platform, then everything that I've been preaching to everybody is, is just words and not action. So I'm a man of action, and so this is my way of just speaking, my story on our platform. Like we said, like I was talking to you guys earlier, these are our stories, and they should be told on our platforms. So with that being said, my name is Tadao Salima, born May 31st, 1977, here in Torrance, California. From my parents, Rosita Salima, she's from Onu'u, American Samoa. And my dad, Sapa Salima, he's from Sapali, Savoy. We have
All the time, I just realized we just family, man, and had to come to this interview.
yeah.
But it's awesome, man. It's awesome. Go ahead and share the upbringing, where you grew up at.
So let me just backtrack real quick because I'm not only am I Samoan, my grandfather was Koilau, and so I got to give my Koilau family the shout out, that they deserve, because those that know my grandfather know, he'd be upset right now in his grave if I didn't give him his shout outs. But yeah, what was the question again, Mose? I'm sorry.
Just about your upbringing, where you grew up at.
Yeah, so like I said, I was born and raised in Carson. Grew up at a nice church here in Carson on Double Street. Went to elementary school at Carson Street Elementary, junior high at Carnegie, and went to high school at Carson High, God's country, the home of the Colts. Went to.
That's an opinion, right? That's an opinion.
I mean, man, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
That's right. That's right.
I went to did college at Harbor College, and then I also went to school at El Camino, and after my days of playing at El Camino, that's where my security career started. Nice. But growing up, I grew up with 11 brothers and sisters, 5 boys, 6 girls. We grew. Our parents had a house we still have here in Carson that we've nicknamed the Loop. My dad had an idea of having the second Jets, so he had us all playing musical instruments growing up. I played the saxophone growing up. I played it in junior high, and a little bit in high school in the jazz band in both junior high and high school. And then sang in the church choir with my uncle who was using our church choir to get his PhD from USC. So that was nerve-wracking singing in Alpha Pese growing up with my uncle, because if one of the sections was Paulua, he would stop everything and make each individual person sing the verse, and then he'd be like, "Oh, okay, you're the Paulua one." But yeah, man, that was childhood.
So yeah, we missed out on the little Salima 4, huh?
Man.
Hey, but
my brothers played the accordions. One of my sisters played the drums. One of my other sisters played the piano, and then another one of my sisters played the violin.
Hey, you know they're saying it's never too late, man. So you guys probably have to bring the band back together some type of.
So one day.
Hey, but let's get to your name, Tadao, man. Tadao is kind of a catchy, when you hear that name, Tadao, man, everybody be like Tadao. Where that name come from? Like, how that name come about?
So the name Tadao came from my cousins had an older Japanese friend that his name was Tadao, and Tadao is actually a Japanese name. People didn't really started calling me that until like high school, when Ice Cube came out with that song Tadao. That's when that song came out, and it just it went everywhere. And then one of the Usos Capone, you know, he was like, "Oh man, my Uso Tadao," and I was just like, at first I thought he was trying to diss, but you know, it became catchy, and I just kept it. But yeah, that's where Tadao came from. You know, if you just take out the D in Tadao and just leave the E, you get Tayao, Tadao. You know, it was that easy for everybody.
Before we go into your security business, would you have any inspirations or were you inspired to do anything before that?
Man, you know, growing up, you know, I was a Raider fan. You know, Howie Long was my favorite player in the whole wide world, and you know, he was a defensive end. So, of course, growing up, you know, every Samoan kid that played football, you know, had the aspirations of becoming an NFL football player. Um, you know, going through high school, I was probably one of the smallest Samoans playing at Carson High. When I graduated from high school, I was 250, 5'10", you know, like I'll show you guys some old high school pictures. I probably look like a little Mexican, but you know, yeah, you know, my aspirations were to play high, you know, try to make it to the league. But then when I realized that wasn't going to happen for me just because of my, you know, biometrics of my body, I wanted to become a police officer. So, you know, the whole plan was to get into the police, to become a police officer, right? Until July 4th of 1995. It was July 4th, and my cousin just came over my house. My dad used to be a volunteer at the LA County Sheriff's. So he had all the insight on all the LA County Sheriff's, Carson Sheriff Station, right? So he came home and he saw the two of us sitting in the block because we live in the cul-de-sac. And he looked at us and he said to us in Samoan, like, you know, if you guys have fireworks, wait till the nighttime because they have these undercover cars driving around right now. No, not even 2 seconds after he walks inside the house, we see these 5 cars going down the street, you know, right in front of my house. So they see us, we see them, we didn't think nothing of it. They probably went and flipped the U-turn because they saw us, right? And all we had were like the firecrackers that you light up and they just, you know, go pop, 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 right? We light one of those up and we throw it. Right as I let go out of my hand, the little Leos just zoom in on me and in my block, right? So they call us over to the car, and I look at him and I say, "Yo, if you're gonna arrest me, just please put the handcuffs on me, put me in the back of the car, and take me away." He goes, "Why? Why are you in a rush?" And I said, "Please, just put your handcuffs on me, and put me in the back of the car." My dad comes walking out the house, talking like, "Sorry, I can't fuck your uncle. I can't fuck your uncle." He comes walking down the stairs and like leaps over the hood of the police car and just takes a swing at me and hits me, knocks me down, right? The sergeant that was in charge of the squad, you know, he picks up my dad and the other guy picks me up and he's like, and I'm like, man, I'm telling the Uyuli officer, like, yo, just please put me in the back of the car. Please put me back in the car. So he doesn't even listen, but the sergeant looks at my dad and just like, yo, is this your son? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, yes. And he goes, oh, release him. Release him to his father. And I looked at him and I said, no, please put me in the car and take me home. But yeah, ever since that day, man, I just, you know, I was like, man, you know what, man? F these little, man. They left me hanging.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So the security, so you know what Pete has said for the follow-up question, like where did the security start with you? How did that come about? Because you
So
guys are big now, and our people as a community is big. Like everybody know you come to Cali, like you're going to see Pacific Islanders doing bodyguarding or bouncing.
yeah. So security for me started back when I was like probably 12, 13 years old. You know, my family owned and ran Samarika Hall, for those of you guys that remember. And so as a kid growing up, you know, we used to go over there on the weekends to, you know, we used to try to stay over there and catch whatever quinceañeras and stuff, right? So that we could help clean up and make, you know, $20 that my uncle would pay us for helping cleaning up and stuff. So, I mean, that's where my, you know, my security career started, was at Samarika Hall. But it started for me like legitimately, you know, 1999 when after football was over for me, and there was nothing to do. Actually, no, 1998 after I got hurt in football, Staples Center was open. You know, one of the coaches over there, his friend owned a security company that was at the time working, that had the account at Staples Center. So he told us about it, and I was the only one that went in there and put an application in. Like the same day I went in to put an application was the same day they gave me a suit, and I started working the Laker games over there.
And was that it? How old were you at that time?
I was probably 21. Yeah, I was 21. You know, Staples Center just opened in 98, and I came in there like December of 98, 99. So yeah, that's when my like, that was probably the last real job I ever had, was at Staples Center. And then in between there, I started going to Hollywood to meet up with some of the boys, and I'll always tell them like, man, can I get a job out here? And you know, some of the boys be like, man, they look at me and be like, nah, you too small, man. I'm like, what? What do you mean I'm too small, man? They're like, yeah, man, they want big. They want us big Usos out here. You know, you're only 5'10", 5'11". And I be like, man. So, you know, that hit me with a little depression and stuff, you know. And so one day I was sitting at Dublin's on a Tuesday night, right? So my God days, I would go, you know, on my days off at what you call that, at Staples Center, I would go to Hollywood and just hang out. And on this Tuesday night, you know, I was just about to start drinking with my cousin, and she said, I mean, David Big Dave walks up to me and goes, Luce, how many beers have you had? And I'm like, I haven't started drinking yet. This will be my first one. He goes, man, Luce, thank you. Thank God. I need you to work for me tonight. And I'm just like, I looked at him. I looked at my cousin. She goes, you broke. You better go and start working. And so that was my first night in Hollywood. They put me at a back door, you know, and the rest was history.
Shout out to Big Dave. The Big Dave blueprint. Was that the Big Dave blueprint at that moment?
But actually, you know what? Now I think about it, I forgot. I mean, I used to work at Point After. I used to be the door guy at Point After, you know, before I went back to school. There was a point in my life where, like, you know, I was, you know, didn't want to listen to my parents. And, you know, I decided to do my own thing. And then I ended up working security at Point After.
Yeah, and around this time, like you say, in the late 80s or 90s, more Pacific Islanders started to fill that workforce of being security or bouncers or bodyguards. But there was a batch or a group of Pacific Islanders that came back in the, some would say, late 70s and 80s. And when we was talking earlier, you were sharing a little bit about that background, some of that history with the USO that pretty much paved the way to open that door for us out here, particularly in Southern California, or in California, period, to have those opportunities.
Yeah. So one of my mentors, you know, he passed away now, Big Navy Tuiasosopo. You know, he used to work for a production company by the name of Al Heyman Production. Al Heyman was, you know, he's responsible. His big fame is he was the first music production company to take hip hop out on tour. So he had, his first big thing was the Budweiser Fest. So Big Navy, along with two other guys, they were the head of his security team for all of his musical tours. So, just a quick story. When I was on tour in back in 2003 with B2K, our last stop was in Detroit, Michigan, at the Palace. I believe we were the last show to ever the last tour to ever have a show at the Palace at the time, because they since then tore it down and rebuilt it. Some Uliuli lady walks up to me. And this is before Samoans were big, She walks up to me and she goes, "Hey, you look Samoan." And I said, "I am." And I had that face like, because people didn't really know who we are. Most people on the East Coast thought I was Cuban or Latino of some sort. So I like, "Yeah, yes, I am Samoan." She's like, "By any chance, do you know a gentleman by the name of Navy Tuiasosopo?" And she said the name like real nice and crisp. So I knew she knew him. And I was like, "Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, he's one of my mentors." She goes, "Please tell him," and I forget her name, but please tell him I said hi. And then I said, "Oh, I definitely will." And then before she walks away, she goes, "And ask him about, the big brawl here in Detroit." And I looked at her and I said, "No, no, 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 no. You can't walk away without finishing the story, because if I ask him, I can't. I wouldn't be able to believe him that what the story coming from him, because anybody that knows Big Navy, he had the gift of gab. God gave him, God blessed him with with a mouthpiece where he could basically, I used to say, the way I used to describe people, or Navy to people was, his gift of gab was so amazing that he could sell a stolen car back to his owner. So
that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, but that's for anybody knows that knows the Tuiasosopo family, that's God blessed that family with the orator gift, But yeah, so she tells me, she tells me that she started off the story with Navy and a bunch of guys, a bunch of the Samoans that were on tour with him beat up the Detroit PD when they tried to come stop a tour over here. And I was like, "You got to be kidding me, right?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "So what happened to them?" She goes, "Oh, they got arrested afterwards, but it was like a big thing." So a couple of days later, I come back home and I paged the Navy. This is when pagers were big, not cell phones they were there, but you got to wait till 6 o'clock, to call somebody. So I call him and meet up, and I tell him, and I was excited to hear the story. So he finishes off the story. He's like, "Yeah, man, Detroit PD tries to come and stop the NWA concert. And, I had the bottom of the ramp, and these guys pull down there, and they all getting out of their cars, and they looking at me and my boy, and he told them, like, did somebody call the police?" And they were like, "Nah." And he goes like, "Then why the F are you guys here? I didn't call you guys." And they had their, whatever the words were. And they looked at Navy like he was crazy and was like, "Well, who's going to stop us from stopping this concert?" The Detroit PD didn't know that the tour brought 30 Usos and Uliuli guys from the LA area and the Bay Area. So he gets on the radio and calls them all down to the bottom of the ramp. So if you guys remember the NWA movie, when NWA was running up the ramp, well, they kind of made that part up so that the little didn't, feel ashamed. But yeah, the real story was they got into a big fight with the security team that was there for NWA. But Big Navy, he was very instrumental in creating the concrete walkway that most of us Samoans walk on, right? There's a lot of old school security guys that know Big Navy, that probably haven't heard the name in a long time. But, Navy was one of those guys, that was out there in the early 90s, late 80s, running tours. Because on Al Heyman's, insurance paperwork, there was 4 of them on there. There was Al Heyman and the other 3 guys that ran his security. and Navy Chiasopo being one of them.
Man, rest in
I
love, the
remember
big
that movie
Navy,
too,
man.
man. They didn't give us our props in that movie.
Yeah.
But with that said, with Navy being that the inspiration, that mentor, how did that help you along your journey and trying to maybe possibly create a business? Did
Well,
you think about business at that time, or was you still just going through the flow?
now I was at that time I was still young, just going through the flow and just trying to figure things out, right? Because like, at the time I was 20, about 22, 23 at the time maybe, and this whole security traveling thing was new to me, right? Being on tour and getting paid for it, right? So like I was out on tour with B2K when I first went out with them. My weekly salary was like 1,500. And then halfway through the tour, they hit us up and there was like, well, they brought us in, me and a couple of others. I had the Uso Strong with me and I had the Uso Silo out there with me. So halfway through the tour, they bring us into the office and they were just like, ticket sales are low. We're gonna have to either send you guys home, or if you guys want to take a cut and pay, we'll keep you guys for the next 4 weeks. So we took a pay cut and we stayed out there for $1,000 a week for the next, 4 weeks that we were out there. So, we was out there figuring it out, man. It was the first time, we were doing security gigs, here and there and around Hollywood and stuff. But like, this tour was like eye opening for me, because I was like, man, you can get paid to, travel around the world and basically what every Samoan kid thinks, you can beat people up and get away with it.
Yeah, it was a different era back then, right? Being security and the way it is now.
Yeah, this is before pre cell phones, pre cell phone cameras, So it was, man, it was just a different ball game back in the day. Like, on that first tour, when we used to have to make some extra money, we used to hop in our floater vans that we used to have on tour with us, so that the artists can go and to do radio interviews and all these other personal stuff they need to do. So we used to hop in those vans, me and Strong, and we used to, those scalpers that were selling T-shirts.
Yeah.
We'll go snatch them up, and then because they were on the properties illegally. We even had guys with the T-shirts selling inside of the arenas, because there was, they were selling it for like $5 at the time, T-shirts, but they were taking away from the merchandise sales that the artists were selling their merch and stuff. So that was, we had to do our own thing to make some extra money on the road and stuff.
Right. Yeah. So before we go into take some questions from the audience or people from the chat that's on YouTube and on Zoom, can you just share with us real quick where the name Manga come from, or how you guys come up with the name and use it as your company name?
Yeah. So I think it was 2017, I believe, 2018. I get this account from one of my boys over at in Orange County, Sea Legs, right? And so it was the first time that like I decided, it's time for me. I'm getting older at this point. I'm just like, I need to team up with some people or develop or create a company, a security company, so that I don't have to be on the road as much. So my boy calls me. He's like, "Yo, man, I got this events place out there in Huntington Beach, and I need 4 big guys that can watch the front door, the back door, and just roam and make sure people ain't sneaking in drinks and food, because it was literally a free show every Saturdays and Sundays." So my friend, at first, the beginning of Among Us, it was just Kaz and I, one of my business partner, Kaz. He was a retired, no, he was a ex-Marine, And he was very his gift was he's paperwork. He can do the paperwork, and everything. You just leave him to do the paperwork, and he'll take care of it all. Me, I was like, I had a Rolodex of different folks, and people would call me for work, and so Kaz and I teamed up because he had his license at the time. So at first it was just Kaz and I doing all these security jobs, and we'll hire some of the Usos here and there. And then, we brought on the Uso C. So the Uso C was running the sea legs for us, while Kaz was running another account, and I was back out on the road doing tours still. So I want to say 2019, the three of us got together and was like, yo, we should start an official business between the three of us, right? So we were like, all right, cool. So we started throwing names around, and I was always fascinated with our Fasa Moore, and I always said to myself and to our team, how dope would it be to have a security company named Almanga, right? Because those that know what the word Almanga is, it embodies, the young man of the village, protecting the village, protecting the people of the village and the land, right? And the Matai system. I said, how dope would that be that we could have a security name, the Almanga company named the Almanga, and then, help, teach other young Samoans that come work with us the true meaning of Almanga, right? Because most of the kids that do work for us, they were raised here in the States, so they weren't raised back home in the villages where they were brought in, through the Almanga system. And so, I want to say December of 2020 is when our paperwork finally came in, and we were a company officially as of December 31st of 2020.
That's right.
As Almanga.
As Almanga Inc. Yes, sir.
That's right.
All right, we need a DJ. We need a background DJ over there making these noises. But man, that's tight because what I love is a lot of our folks we always have these thoughts and dreams, but never put it into play.
Yeah.
And for you to do that, it shows the pioneer, right? This whole this podcast is called Roots of Resilience, and I'm pretty sure you before you even got to that point, all the struggles that you had to go through, right? With even thinking about doing this. Did you always have the confidence in doing this, or was it something that you got to get hyped up on?
No, my wife used to always tell me, why don't you start a security company? Why don't you start a security company, right? Because she used to see all the calls that come in, like, yo, I need this, I need that, right? My thing was, at the time, I was worried about providing for my family, so I didn't want to put in the time to build up this security company when I can easily go on tour and make, 12, 15 G's in a month, right? Where if I was to start the security company, now I got to stay home and nurture it and build it and do all this, and that to it, right? Because you just can't start a company and just let it there, leave it there, right? And so, thank God that, God blessed me with a great team. He brought in, Kaz is our CFO. C is our COO, our Chief Operating Officer. He brought Donnie, on as well, and then our the last that we have is Brandon. So between the five of us, we were able to build Almanga to what it is right now. And having a strong team, is crucial, right? Especially for somebody like myself. I'm not saying that I'm super busy, but I am. I don't realize that I am until it's time for me to send you guys what you guys were asking for, like a profile of myself, right? And you guys don't get it. It's just one of those things where my mind is going in 10 different directions at 10 different speeds, you know. So, you know, having a team, you know, is really good because, like, although I have the title of the CEO of Almanga, I don't feel like I'm a CEO. You know, to me, you know, these titles that we have is just titles for the business aspect of the American world, right? To me, you know, my title is, you know, visionary, director of awesomeness, you know, because it's a catchy name, you know. People like to, you know, so, you know, that's that's just me, and you know, that's you know, that's I'm blessed and honored to have the strong team that we do have right now with our mama.
Oh, can we write that? Director of awesomeness. I never heard that one before, man.
We'll include that in your bios.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
like I said, we'll go to the audience, and I'm sure the audience has some questions that they would like to share or ask. I can't really see it on my end. Lorraine or Pete, are you able to see the questions or comments?
Yeah, we'll go into the Zoom. If anyone on Zoom, they got anything, I know I see some Big C on here, you know, Donnie. But they wanted to chime in on some of this history right here. You know, because one thing I love about you, Tadao, is you're a historian. You know, you like to dig into our peoples, and how do you implement our culture into your company? Because you know, obviously, I see the where. You know, the first thing I see is the name and the where. And well, what else would you what people would not see that you guys do, but maybe behind closed doors?
Well, so when I go and pitch Almanga to our clients, right, our future clients, I ask them the question, what's scarier than six big, ugly Samoans?
What they say?
They don't have an answer for that, right? I don't think anybody does except for me. You know,
Right.
what's scarier than six big, ugly Samoans is those same big, six ugly Samoans smiling at you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, like, you know, it's for Almanga, we had to, you know, when we decided to take this task on, right, we had to change the mindset of our people that are working security, right? And the way we did, the first thing that we did was we did away with the term security guards, right? Because, you know, in order for us to change the mindset, we got to change the title that has been put on us, right? Security guards. Everybody has a different trigger when they hear the word security, right? So security can be like, you know, for some people, when they see security, they're like, oh man, here comes them snitches, you know, what you call that? And statistics show that more security guards on duty are killed than police officers. Why is that? Because, you know, in criminals' minds, they don't want to be caught because there's a loose end over here, which is the security guard, right? And all he was doing was just stand there. He didn't even try to stop him, but he's the witness to it all, right? So, you know, it's one of those things where, like, let's change the narrative for ourselves, right? Let's change our title. Let's call ourselves safety ambassadors, right? And so people are like, when I say safety ambassador, well, what the hell is a safety ambassador, right? Because a lot of stuff that we do, you know, it's related with the guest services, right? So we tell them we're you know, Almanga is a number of things, right? A security company, we're not. Where Almanga is a modeling agency for big Samoan men and women, right? So if you need some big Samoans, you know where to go, you know who to call, right? What separates us and what makes Almanga different from any other Samoan company that you can go out and hire is that we teach our guards the art of verbal de-escalation. Like we don't ever want any of our guards to ever get physical with anybody unless they absolutely have to defend themselves, right? And that's the limit. Just defend yourself. So that goes all in within our teachings, right? Of Almanga. You know, we try to teach everybody that, you know, let's not get physical. That's what they want us to do, right? That's the old us. Like with our new title, safety ambassadors, let's show these people when they first walking in, right, we're guest services. The first people they see is who? Us. The last people they see when they leave is going to be who? Us. So let's change the narrative for ourselves. When people walk in, we're going to be big Usos and sisters that are smiling at them, right? Automatically breaking the ice. They're going to be like, oh, man, I was scared walking in when I saw you guys, but I saw you guys smiling, so I knew you was my Uso, because they know who we are,
Right.
right? They already know who we are. It's just a matter of breaking the ice and just making everybody comfortable when they see us. So, that was one of our first biggest missions, and I feel like we've accomplished that with just the guys that work for Armanga, right? And so, that was our biggest obstacle to get over, right? Was changing the mindset of our own people, not the clients, but of our own people first. Because when we can change our mindset, think about it, man. We're all resilient people. We've navigated the ocean for years without any compasses. All we did was look up at the stars, look at our tattoos on our hands, and just keep it pushing, right? And so we used to tell I would tell our clients that Amanga has it's a Samoan word that means the protectors of the village, the young men and women of the village, right? And I learned that from marketing, from being on the road with my Uso Wilmer for, I don't know, for 20 plus years, right? Wilmer's like my brother and like my business mentor, because like I've seen him walk into the room and just sell an idea of his. From there, we're filming or we're shooting, like the show Your Mama, right? And so like, he would tell his story, and then it just opened up everything, right? So I was telling the boys, like, if we have a backstory to the name of our company, like it's gonna mean so much more to the people that hire us, right? Because one of our saying is, let our family protect your family. And people, the Palangis are like, oh my gosh, that is so amazing. I love you guys already, right? So then when we send them our invoice, they don't feel as bad. They gave us that like, oh, this is you guys already rates. We're like, yeah, we're like, we're a special niche company. We're the company we're the people that you guys call when all the other security companies that you guys have hired have failed you guys. So yeah, man, that's the in a little nutshell, that's the beginning of Armanga right there.
I love
They
that.
probably saying, do we get the family rate too?
Yeah. I mean, we get that,
Nah, that's tight.
I love that, Big Goose, because looking back at the history of security, it was a time when the Pacific Islanders had a bad rep, sort of like a bullyish type of reputation.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, them Usos at the door, man. Woo, they always tripping or whatnot. And but now, like you have mentioned, because for that job physically, we're already prepared. But like you have mentioned, that you recognize that how do we meet this job with the mental wellness as well as the emotional? Are we
Yeah.
emotionally prepared for some of these? Because some of the Usos, we tend to carry a lot around with us and hold in a lot. And so as soon as we get an avenue, an opportunity to release it, so you imagine a lot of the Usos that's doing security, some of them probably have that mindset, like they're looking for, someone so they can release or channel this frustration or anger. And can you share or describe like what you guys do with that? Is it verbal training, like physical training?
Yeah. So like I said, because of the team that we have at Armanga, man, I got some rock stars that are like, that you guys. One of them you guys already interviewed, which is Donnie. And Donnie has all of his training from I don't know if Donnie even let you guys know, but he has a master's in relationships. So he knows how to use the words, and so him and C has a master's in communications as well. So the two of them, they help, they formed a curriculum so that we're able to teach the non the verbal de-escalation class of Among Us. You know, one of the crazy things that I always get asked is, you know, are you guys or were you guys a part of this, or were you guys a part of that beat up these guys or that beat up these guys, you know? And I always have to tell them, like, you know, no, we're not those guys. And we actually teach our guys not to do that stuff, because we know, you know, when one Uso, like, this is the bad thing about being a Samoan, right? And this is the only bad thing about being a Samoan in this industry, is when one Samoan messes up and it's on video, like, they don't say, oh, this Samoan that works for Among Us, you know, beat these guys up. They just say, oh man, these Samoans beat up these guys over here. And so now all of us Samoans get, you know, put into that same circle. So, you know, that one of the things that we try hard at to do at Among Us is we try to teach verbal de-escalation. That's the number one thing that we teach our guards, you know, even especially our leads, you know, like, you know, and the reason, and I get the reasoning for a lot of our people, right? Because a lot of our people, we were brought up with the iron fist, right? Our parents, our fathers didn't have the words to describe how he wanted us to do these things that we messed up on, right? The only thing that he knows is when he messed up as a kid, you know, he got beat up. So now that it's his turn to be a father, he knows the same thing. He doesn't have the tools in his belt to sit us down and just be like, son, do you understand why I'm mad at you, or why you're in a situation that you're in right now, right? You know, all he knows is when I have no words to say back to you, you know, this is always going to, you know, answer all my questions for me, especially when I'm working security. So we have to teach our guys and even our females, like, you know, we got to change our mindset, guys. That's why we don't use the word security. That's why we're safety ambassadors, right? Think of the word safety use. Like, how are we going to call ourselves safety ambassadors and have that on our backs if you're over here trying to beat somebody up? You know, we always make it to a point so that, like, say C and I are working a gig, right? And I'm not having a good day, or C's not having a good day. She just taps me on the shoulders and be like, "Oh, you should go over there and let me handle this." You know, because, you know, we all got to be accountable for each other's actions, right? We got to all make sure, like, when we go out with a crew, we got to make sure that all 10 of us that went to work goes home that night from that event. You know, it's not like we don't ever want you know, somebody on the team to get to that point where he gets frustrated and he puts hands on somebody. Now he gets arrested, right? So now, instead of us or him using his money to take his kids out and feeding them and putting the roof over their head, we got to use his money to, you know, bail him out of jail or try to hire him a lawyer. So, you know, it all, for us, it all starts with our mindsets, guys. You know, we got to change the mindset of our own people first, moving forward.
That's right. Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that and shedding some insight on that. We got a question in the comments. I mean, in the chat. Or go ahead, Pete.
No, I was gonna say we got 3 comments, but
Go
man,
ahead.
I'm glad we got this. I'm glad we got this recorded, because this is some pioneer stuff. This is some game changing stuff that you know, how to de-escalate situations. So with that said, we go into a question with in the chat says, without manga name being a critical aspect of your company, how does the element of faith play a part in your company, knowing our culture is Momo Leatua?
Well, thank you for that question. You know, so our company is just, I mean, the name of our company Among Us is just not the name of Among Us. You know, like, we have a saying that we use. It's actually a Samoan proverb. You know, you know, and we live by that because, you know, like, just like in the Matai system, right? You don't just you know, turn 21 and all of a sudden you become a Matai of the family or a Matai of the village, right? You got to earn your stripes, you know. So the same thing with us here at Among Us is like, you know, a lot of people don't realize this, but Samoa is probably one of the only cultures in the South Pacific where religion and culture is one. People don't realize that. But when, you know, like my name, Tadao, right? My Samoan name is Tadao Leasolele, right? So Tadao Leasolele means the good morning. The good morning was referring to the morning that John Williams and the La Mosa Church arrived in Sapali, right? So the La Mosa Church was the first church to come to Samoa. And at the time when La Mosa landed in Samoa, Maliokoa was the king of Samoa, right? And so he made it a point that the church and our culture were one. And and like in most villages, correct me if I'm wrong, the only person that can, can sometimes overturn the top Makai is the Faifeao of the village. I've heard of it and I've seen it happen a few times. So does faith play a lot of in our culture? I mean, in our manga, yes, it does, because we're all faith. We all grew up in the church. Everybody that's a part of our manga, or at least the five of us that are part of the executive board.
Nice. Another question on is how do you balance the work life as a, it says security guard on here, but I'm gonna say a different word, as a family protector, working long hours and solidifying and protecting your family.
So
how do you balance your work life and your personal life?
My wife, to be honest, my wife is a super mom. My wife, she's how can I say this? She's my hero, because she encourages me all the time. Babe, you've been working all these hours. You need to make time for us here at the house. And so, like, if I don't have that, somebody telling me that, she's right, I will continue to do that, right? Because before I met my wife, I spent 15 years on the road providing for my parents, right? Because I was the only person, those were the only people that I had to take care of at the time was my parents. I spent 15 years on the road, missing out on family functions. Every family function, all the church functions I grew up going to, like, I sacrificed a lot for my family within those 15 years. So when I finally met my wife, I was ready to get them off the road and just stay at home and be a father of some sort, right, or a family man. And that was part of the whole transitioning of manga as well, was starting on manga so that I could afford to stay home and not be out on the road, because the money on the road is very lucrative and very good if you're out with the right people. Like, I spent from 2017 to 2022, I was out on the road with Guns N' Roses, and the pays, the places I've been with them, it's crazy and stuff. So it's coming back to your question, how do we balance the work? Like, you have to recognize that you have a family at home. Like, me, myself, personally, if any one of my Usos have a family, like kids that are of a certain age, they won't be on tour for me. I'll find them work here at home so that they're not missing out on their, so that they're not missing out on their kids growing up, right? Because my wife and my daughter comes sometimes with me to work. I'm at that point now where I'm able to bring my family with me. A lot of these jobs that I take now, I'll only take them if my family can come on the road with me here and there on different cities, but it's just for those of you trying to get into the game and you have young kids, like, please do your kids a favor and, don't go out on the road for 2-3 months at a time, because you come back home, your kids are going to be a complete different person than you are. You can't raise your kids over the phone on FaceTime. That's just me personally.
Yeah. And real quick, man, shout out to the wife, man. You got to give her name.
Oh yeah, man. My wife Nicole,
there you go. Sister
my wife Nicole is a super mom, man. My daughter,
right.
she's only my daughter turns 4 this year, and I think my daughter is like, 75 pounds, and my wife is only 120 pounds, and she carrying her all around. You know, when we go to Disneyland, my wife carrying her on her back and stuff. My wife is a super mom over here.
That's why they call it better half, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so one more question before I give it up to you, real quick. It says, can you share with us GST and safe rap training is all about?
So, one of GST is the Gracie Survival Tactics, and so I've been a jiu-jitsu practitioner now for 25, about 20 plus years, right? I'm still a blue belt because I would go and then I would leave for months at a time, maybe years at a time. But I always go back to to jiu-jitsu because one of the things that I encourage all my young Usos and the young sisters is you got to invest into yourself, right? You got to invest into yourself, whether that being getting your college degree, right? Learning how to shoot a gun or learning how to handle a weapon, right? Learning how to defend yourself in situations, right? Like you have to be able to, in my eyes, you have to invest into yourself. So that way, when I hire you, you have something that you can offer back to us, to the group, right? Like it's okay to not know anything. That's the best way to have, to have somebody that you can actually raise and train because they're yellow. I mean, they're green to it all, right? They don't know how to do anything. So you're teaching them everything from beginning to the end. But, in my eyes, I'm like, I tell people all the time, use the security company and the jobs that we're doing to like elevate yourself, right? One of the things I tell the young guys all the time is never take advantage of the people, right? Always take advantage of the opportunities. And people are like, what does that mean? How can I take advantage of the opportunity if I can't take advantage of the people, right? Well, a lot of these jobs that we do, we're at like, technology places. We're working for these crazy millionaires, right? And if you invested into yourself, like I was saying earlier, right, and you have a degree in like computer science, and we're doing an event where it's a computer a tech company, right, and you're working it, like you didn't take advantage of the opportunity that we presented to you if you didn't get anybody's numbers from that event, right? Like the people look at security like as if, oh man, you know what? He's doing security work because he couldn't play football. And that's the wrong mindset to have. Like I've never had, since I left Staples Centers and back in 2003 after the first three-peat that we had at Staples Center, I was there for it all. Even I was there for the last year I was there was 2004, I believe, when we lost that game to Detroit, right? That was the last time I was at Staples Center. That was the last job I ever had. I've been an entrepreneur basically since 2004, just making up jobs for myself because, the one thing that, my dad used to always tell me is like, if you're going to do security, why don't you go get a job at the government? At least you can get you can retire and get a pension and this and that. Now that I look back at it and I see all my friends that work for the government retiring and they're getting pensions and and I'm hiring them to come work for me, off duty now. And I'm just like, man, my dad was right. I should have gotten the job. I could have been retired by now and living off of a pension, right? But, it's all good, man. Everybody has their own journey.
Yeah.
But safe rap. So getting back to the GST and the safe rap, right? So one of the things that we were blessed to be a part of, right? Because they only train, the GST is the Gracie Survival Tactics, which is the tactical training that they give, that the Gracie family trains the Lils, and they train them to defend themselves for 90 seconds until their backup can get there, right? So because of my relationship with those guys, they allowed us to go over there and take this training. And then C and I we're now certified instructors for the GST, and C and I are certified safe rap instructors for we can train. It's a two-man uh, system that was the safe wrap was originally designed for the mental institutions and the hospitals because patients will come in there and they would go crazy, and then people, all the nurses and all the security at these facilities will get in, and people, one person would cause so much havoc that like some people got broken noses, yada yada, this and that. So they developed this safe wrap. So she and I, again, we were honored and privileged to be able to go and take this class at LAPD, the LAPD training facility here in Westchester 2 weeks ago. So she and I, and along with Donnie, Kaz, and Brandon, the five of us, we can teach our guys the GST, which we have started training these guys. And so the safe wrap training is coming around. We should be putting that out either next week or the week after, so that we have it for this big festival that we're doing here in Redondo Beach, the Beach Life Festival.
Yeah, that is a big event now. Redondo Beach.
Oh yeah, it's
But make me put in an application.
Well, it's about 12,000 people. All the Palangis there, that have money in the South Bay that come from from Marina Del Rey, El Segundo, Manhattan, Redondo, Torrance, and even Palos Verdes.
All right. Well, thank you for answering your willingness to answer our questions from the audience. And I'm sure there's a few more questions, but we won't be able to get into it tonight. Sorry about that, audience, but thank you for submitting your questions in to Dr. Tadao.
Can I just one more plug before we go, because this is actually part of the vision for our future with Almanga, right? Is the training that we spoke about, right? Our goal is to train any and all Polynesians that are willing to learn the Almanga way, right? We want to make sure that when they come into this security world, that they have the bare minimum, right? So they have some sort of training, so that they know how to maneuver themselves if they ever get caught in a situation, right? So we're right now, Donnie, Kaz, myself, and Brandon, we're formulating these classes so that we're able to teach it to the masses that want to learn. We just got our training facility here in Carson, right across the street from 24-Hour Fitness. So, you get a double whammy. Go work out, and then you come join us for the training, or come training with us, and then go work out at the gym. We have government contracts that we're working on right now, with the government. So, that's just one of the big things that we're working on. But our biggest thing that we have is the technology side of Almanga. Kaz, believe it or not, like I was saying, he was gifted with the patience of doing paperwork, right? But Kaz is also a techie. Kaz has developed this app called a Coupe app, and it's spelled Kupay. It's pronounced Coupe, right? So we're in the process of launching that, sometime this year. We're just going through all the different phases right now, and we're using it to pay our own team out right now, and so that we can launch it for the masses to use. So Almanga has a lot of stuff ahead. This is just a little bit of what we're doing right here, you guys, that we want to share with you guys, because it's gonna help a lot of security companies in the future.
Nice.
This some 5-star security
training right here.
man. This is
I feel like
this is the Navy
got my
SEAL
guard
of security
card
right here.
Yeah, feel like I got my guard card tonight.
Hey, man.
One question I'm dying to ask. So for those of us that want to get into security, I did a couple of security gigs, and in my mind it was like getting the gig. It was like, oh yeah, we got you want to come work at this gig? You got Too Short, Ice Cube, E40, Snoop Dogg, and I was like, yeah, man, that sounds dope. That sounds like it's gonna be lit. and I go there and they put me they assign me to the porta potty Zeus all night. I was like, yeah. But so I want to let you know if you can explain like some of the, like for me that went into the security business thinking I'm finna go get pictures with everybody and sign autograph, but in my situation that night when I was hired as a security, that wasn't the case. So you kind of want to just share like the both, the highlights of being a security as far as the glamour life, and then also like the work, the meeting, but the phobies of the work.
Yeah. So thank you for bringing that up too, because that's, I'll just say this. There are different levels and different tiers to security work, right? So a lot of people, when they come do security work, just like yourself, right? They come in, they're like, oh man, I'm gonna do this. They want to jump straight to the top without working their way from the bottom, right? Well, my first job when I got to Staples Center, right? The first place they put me at was a door just to watch it. And then, somebody walked by me and was like, yo, are you new here? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you too big to be watching this door. I can put one of these little guys over there. So that's what they did. They swapped me out and they brought me in and they started training me, right? So, but to come back to what you were saying is like these different tiers of security and the different levels of the security industry, right? Me personally, if they would have stuck me at the porta potty Zeus at my age, I'd have been like, cool, miss me with all that other stuff. Send the young guns up in there, right? And what I tell a lot of these guys, the young guys, is, be a sponge wherever they put you guys, right? Because wherever they put you guys, remember, that is the most important place that they need you to be, right? And you got to have that mentality, because if not, you're like, oh man, these fools put me over here. I'm not doing nothing all day. Well, guess what? You're still getting paid the same amount of money as those guys in there sweating breaking their backs, lifting people over the barricades, right? And all you're doing is just standing here waving people by. So, you gotta think of, you gotta think of the positives of the different, positions that they put you in. Because not everybody's gonna be able to, you know, not everybody's going to be able to be, escorting the celebrities. Not everybody is going to be, able to, be in front of the stage. Like that's why there's a team. We need everybody. Like wherever we place you guys, it's because we think that you're going to do the best job over there. And remember, you're getting paid the same as the other guy over here on the other side of the event, but you just get to, stand there and do nothing. Give me that post, and I'm there all night.
Right.
Nah, but the Usos did, they really did take care of me that weekend. Always made me feel, just checking on me, make sure I was good, because you stand up the whole time. So, Oos, you want to go, take a break, sit down a little bit or whatnot, and then later on at the closing of the event, I did get my photos with the said artists.
Yeah, the one thing I tell my youngsters is what makes me very unique. In this industry is that, I have a network, and my network is my net worth. So, when I tell guys that, that are in school right now that works for us, I said, listen, while you guys are in school, make sure you guys connect with all these guys that you're going to school with, that you're in classes with, right? Because these youngsters that you're in school with right now are going to be CEOs of these companies later on in life. And they're going to see your name come through their application deck, and they're going to be like, "Oh man, this guy was cool to me, right? When we were in school." Or they're going to look at you and like, "Oh man, this guy was a prick. There goes his app," right? Or like, if you need, like, I can make a phone call to some people, and they'll do the favor that I'm asking. I'm not going to ask for crazy favors, but like, if I was to call Wilmer, for instance, right? If I was to call him, if I was in need of money, like, he'll send it to me. Just like my mom and dad's funerals, that I had, like, we had it, but he still shot me over, coupe for my mom and dad's funerals and stuff. So, your network becomes your net worth. And people that don't understand that now, they'll be the guys that'll always be broke because they have nobody they can call on when they need help.
Yeah, that's tight. I think it's so key, right? And that's also building relationship part. And I remember you saying that C has that master relationship, and that also pretty sure benefits your guys' company as well. So yeah, man. This I know we are running out of time, but this got to be a part two to this because I know Tadao got so much knowledge and history as well, and also about bringing other people as well in it. I know you got a bunch of stories, and I definitely want to hear them as well. But Big Oop, I don't know about you, man. We got some good gems out of this one tonight.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely, man. And just like you said, I definitely need a follow-up. And, like we touch bases during the week. I love the conversations that we do have. And like Peter has said, man, I love your knowledge on our community history, particularly with the security or the what we call them now, ambassador, safety ambassador. And yeah, but besides that, want to give you, the last closing thoughts. Um, Once again, thank you and thank you for the boys that's tapped in, everybody from your team. Uh, I feel very safe in this space. Man, we got the Harmanga boys here. Ain't nothing gonna happen to us tonight. But yeah, love what you guys doing. Love how you guys represent us and take us everywhere you guys go. And we really are grateful and just got nothing but our love and support for you guys. With that being said, can you just share with us before you leave any closing thought, like what's you guys' next project and what can we look forward to with Manga Inc.?
Yeah, if anyone's interested in working alongside us at Beach Life, May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, you can go on our Manga Inc., our Instagram page, and you can get all the information on there on how to sign up. You know, and I live by the saying of aloha, alofa, and ofa, right? And those three words comes down to basically the same word, alofa, right? You gotta live your life. You gotta treat people the way you want to be treated, and I'm a man of service. Tautua to me is big for me. I learned it from my father and my mom when growing up, and so like now, everything and anything I do has to have a community involvement with it, right? There's got to be a reason why we're taking these jobs on, right? And it is to better our people. I'm tired of the stigma that they don't want to hire Samoans because all we do is beat people up. No, there's a new company out there that's out there to help our people, and teach our people the correct way of doing it, right? All we did was learn the Palangi way and how they play this game in this world. So now that we have the same knowledge that they have, hey man, the world is our oyster, guys. Gatekeeping is one thing that I'm not. So a gatekeeper. I have this thing about gatekeepers in our community, and I seen these memes about gatekeepers in our community, and I think that I agree with these guys. They're bad for our community. So I'm an open book. Anybody that wants to come learn about the security industry, feel free to hit me up. You can always catch me on my Instagram page, Tadao 310, or I'm also on LinkedIn. If you guys can find me, Tadao Salima. But yeah, man, anybody who has any questions about the security industry, no matter what state you live in, I can always plug you in. We got Usos out there in Utah that have their own security company there. We got Usos in Las Vegas and Washington and Oregon, even Arizona, so, whatever state you guys live in, man, feel free to reach out. We have somebody out there.
You never know, man. Those gatekeepers could be good security guards too,
Man, they can live up to that name. Hey, they can live up to that name, gatekeeper, and come watch this game.
Right. Yeah, that part. Oh man, good stuff today, though. It's good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff, man. Thank you again, Tadao, for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. Thank you for all that you guys do representing our Pacifica community. And we wish you guys great success and joy. And definitely want to, invite you back in the future. But before we wrap it up, we want to share some wonderful opportunities and resources for this week's media. You guys can also join SoCal Picker. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for all our latest updates on resources. And don't forget so we'll have back-to-back episodes. So next week will be our episode 9, and our guest speaker Thursday, April 17th, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we have another hometown talent, Nelly Lua from Islands Lays and Boutique. And for all you guys, graduation season is coming up, so definitely want to tap in next week to get all your fresh lays and your graduation accompaniments. This resources right here, you guys can go ahead and screenshot them as Lorraine just post or share the slides and the links.
Opal, I just want to say thank you guys again for this opportunity, man. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but like I said, man, if there's any place I would like to tell our stories, it's right here on our own platforms. Thank you guys again. Pete, thank you. Love you, Mauso.
Yeah.
Love you too, Mauso, man. It's just like the garage. We just put a camera in it, You put a camera on it. But yeah, it was just real quick, man. I appreciate everything you do and the education that you're trying to do for our people, man. It's pretty awesome. And especially with the work that we do in FO, I can see a lot of these brothers that come out of jail that have those mental issues, not only get a job with you guys, but also learn how to deal with things that they probably never dealt with before. And so, just listening to you tonight, man, was just educational for me. So I appreciate it.
Definitely. And thank everyone. Thank you everyone for tapping in tonight, spending your evening with us, and especially those who are watching us live on YouTube. And once again, thank you to our special guest, Tadao Salima. Thank you to our SoCal Picker team, technical team behind the scenes. And just want to once again, before we leave, give you your lays, and man, you guys keep protecting families with your families. So I love that. With that, I'll turn it over to Peter for closing thoughts and our closing prayer. Thank you guys once again.
Said everything.
Looking out, Tadao.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, I think we said everything tonight. Just give the man upstairs all the praise and glory. Our dear Father in heaven, we come to you in prayer. Thank you for the many blessings you bestowed upon us. We thank you for this opportunity to speak with Tadao and about hearing about his company, and appreciate all the brothers who tapped in and shared their wisdom and thoughts. I'm so grateful, Father, for this platform, this technology, that we're able to share our story from our own mouths and from the way we do things by praying unto you and asking for your spirit to be with us in this meeting. Father, we ask you that those who tapped in may gain some wisdom and educate themselves on work and just allow themselves to network. And we just pray, Father, that those who are looking for work may reach out and connect with those who they heard on here. Father, we're just grateful for this opportunity to continue to uplift our peoples in our communities. And may we continue to do so by glorifying you in everything that we do, because we know that it is you that strengthens us and gets us through things that we normally wouldn't. So we give you all the glory and honor. I'm so grateful for our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and the example and the atonement that He has given us in our lives. And we love you, Father. We say these things humbly in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you guys.
Amen.
Thank you guys.
Amen.
All right, those.
Yeah, Moses. Love you guys.
I'll hit you up tomorrow.
Okay.
Yep, you'll be in the